know Peter Jean Hernandez, John Roger Stevens, Alicia Cook? No? Okay, how about Bruno Mars, John Legend, and Alicia Keys? Each of these people changed not only their names, but their entire identity. As for me, I've kept my name, but what I have changed multiple times throughout my career is my identity. And I don't just mean my hair, although I've changed that a lot too. It started when I was working as a lawyer. And I woke up one day and had to ask myself, why was I going to this job where all I was doing all day was fighting with people? It just didn't resonate in my core. So I asked myself, who am I? I'm a daughter, I'm a sister, I'm a lawyer, I'm a writer, I'm a fashionista, but I'm a lot of things, but in a word, I'm fabulous. In a word, fabulous. In a word, fab. It came to me like a lightning bolt. I knew it was mine. I ran to the computer, I grabbed the domain name, and that night, in a word, fab, the fashion blog was born. There was so much magic that happened around that time. The blog quickly became a go-to internet destination for irreverent fashion commentary. I started getting invited to all the best parties in New York City, and I was getting some great B-list celebrity selfies. Life was good. And when people would see me out and about, they say, hey, Fab, hey, it's in a word, Fab. And I became this name that I completely made up. That was the first time that I renamed myself in order to reframe myself, and I had reframed my entire career. And that name actually took me all the way to Paris Fashion Week in 2009. And let me tell you, it was, in a word, fabulous. A couple years later, I moved to Newark, and I really fell in love with the city. And I loved the art scene, the smiling faces, the dive bars. And when I would tell my friends how much I love Newark, they would go, Newark? I knew I needed to reframe Newark, not just for my friends, but for the greater community that just didn't know what I knew about my city. So it just so happened that the Greater Newark Convention and Visitors Bureau was looking for bloggers at that time. So I threw my hat in the ring and pitched myself as Newark's Glambassador, a tour guide to the fun and fabulous parts of the city. Well, they loved it. So I started writing, and month after month, blog after blog, I felt like, okay, I'm doing my part to change the conversation about Newark. And I think we knew the tide was turning when the publisher reached out and they said, we're looking for the author of our next book title, 100 Things to Do in Newark Before You Die. Well, I got the job. And the crazy part is, the book came out exactly 50 years past the People's Rebellion here in Newark. So media outlets were looking for Newark stories at that time. So my book ended up getting written up in the New York Times, USA Today, US News and World Report, and all of a sudden, everybody knew who the Glambassador was. So this was the second time I had now renamed myself, reframed myself, and at the same time, I was able to do a small part of reframing Newark. So just a couple months ago, it happened again. I went on a popular daytime television show just to sit in the audience, but my question got picked to ask the host for her advice segment. So next thing you know, I'm on live television, and it started something like this. How you doing? I date wealthy men exclusively. Some of my friends judge me because they say I'm being too picky. What do you think? Do you think I should lower my standards? So her question to me was, well, what do you have to offer? And my response was, whenever someone asks me what I bring to the table, I say I am the table. Well, the audience loved it. The host, not so much. She wasn't a fan. She basically told me to grow up and to lower my standards. Horrible advice, horrible advice. So after the show, I got a lot of feedback. Some of it agreed with her, but most people really supported what I said, and they wanted to know more. So that was when I Am the Table Global, the women's dating empowerment movement, was born. Now I have a whole movement of women that are inspired, global goddesses that are inspired to date higher, date with higher standards, higher boundaries, and never ever settle. Now when people see me out and about, they say, "Hey, table, there goes the table." So once again, I renamed myself, reframed myself, and now I'm going into my third act in my career. So my next book will be I Am the Table, which I'm super excited about. So based on these three things, these three occurrences in my life, my takeaway is that life is less about finding yourself, and it's so much more about creating yourself. So I'm going to leave you with this. What parts of your life are you willing to rename in order to reframe?